3 weeks ago, these were nothing more than tiny black seeds scattered across the soil. Today, some are thriving and some are falling behind, and a few may not make it at all. Week 3 is where the real story begins. This is when tiny changes can determine whether these seedlings become stunning specimen cacti or disappear before they ever have a chance. Let's see who's winning the battle. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Cactus Cult. Today marks 3 weeks since sowing our seeds. Week 3 is one of the most important checkpoints because seedlings are becoming established. So what we're going to be reviewing today is the overall progress, a little bit of specimen comparison, some problems that I've seen, what healthy growth actually looks like, and what next week's plan is going to be and what we're going to do going forward. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and remove our humidity domes and see what we've got. All right, so let's just get a little bit closer to the review. So at first glance in our tray, it doesn't look like I don't see any fungus or white mold right off the bat. On my other tray, I do see a couple of mushrooms, and we're going to go over what I do to deal with those in a little bit. But everything's looking good so far. Okay, so just a quick recap of the setup. We are still keeping them in their germination domes. Over the last week or so, I've started to have the top portions of the lid open partially. This is to help combat with the white fuzzy mold and any fungus. I've noticed that the top soil has started to remain a little bit too moist now that the roots are established. I think that they're ready to start getting a little bit of fresh air. We keep them under the LED light, still at 60%. We haven't turned it up yet. I don't think we need to. We have stopped using the heat mat. And again, these aren't a 50% cactus mix, 50% perlite. Our watering method going forward is we're only going to be doing bottom waterings. We're no longer going to water from the top. Again, this is to keep that top level drier. That's going to combat the fuzzy mold and any type of fungus going forward. And we are also going to be reviewing a little bit of the species that we planted just to look at kind of the differences. What's kind of growing faster than the others. Now, reviewing the germination rate, overall, I think it was pretty decent versus what I've planted. It doesn't look like we've lost a lot of seedlings. I've noticed that there are still some that are popping up. As far as what I feel like may have been the most successful, there's the one right here you see in front of you. These are the Astrophytum myrostigma Kikos, which I'm actually very excited about. They seem to be fast growers so far. I'm excited to see how they grow. As far as some of the slower growers, I'm noticing that the Gynoeclinaceum frederici variegatas, those further in the back, they seem to be growing a little bit slower, and I don't know if that's because of the variegation or what. But again, I'm almost as equally excited to see those as well. Now, when discussing healthy seedlings, this is what we're looking for right here. You notice the nice green color, the thick, plump bodies. I don't know if you could pick it up on the camera here, but there's tiny ribs starting to begin. At the very tip, you can see the tiny spines that are emerging. Overall, there's some decent spacing on these. I wish they were a little bit better, but we'll worry about that when we go to do our next transplant. Pretty uniform growth. They seem to all be growing at around the same rate and about the same size. And you can tell that these have some healthy root anchoring. They're having no issues standing up tall and straight. These are ideally what you want to see overall. And now, as I said before, as a little species comparison, you can see that these Astrophytum, they seem to be growing significantly faster than the Gynoeclinaceum. So I'll bring those over closer so you can see the difference. Right here, and again, I don't know if it's because they're variegated, but obviously they're not growing at the same rate. I mean, they seem to be about half the size, but they're healthy. I'm liking the way the roots are developing. They're all standing upright. Everything's looking good so far. They're just growing at a little bit slower pace, which is understandable.
Young rich niggas, so we ain't really never had no old money. We got a whole lot of new money though.
Now, a couple things that we are going to be watching for. We're going to be watching for any type of stretching. If we notice that they're getting too little light, we don't want tall, skinny seedlings. Now, these are all getting roughly the same amount of light. Like I said, I've been keeping the light at about 60%. I don't notice any stretching so far. If we do, we'll increase the light intensity. But as of now, I'm thinking that they're all growing at a pretty reasonable rate, and I'm not seeing any signs of stress or anything like that. So for now, we're going to keep it at 60%. Over the next couple weeks, we'll watch it, though. We might increase the intensity. Other thing you want to watch out for, any type of red coloration. Initially, I noticed that we did have a couple that had a little bit of redness. Those have all seemed to turn perfectly green. I think it might have been just initial seedling stage couldn't handle. But like I said in the previous video, the overall species, the ones around it seemed fine, so I'm pretty sure that it was just needed to catch up a little bit, and they seem to have all kind of relatively got to that same point. Yellowing, which could be watering issues or rot beginning. I haven't seen a lot of that. Usually by the time they look green or mushy or something like that, it's usually because of mold taking them over. Any soft seedlings, which could be from damping off or like I said, that beginning of rot or mold taking over. And what they do is they seem to turn green, dark green, and kind of like shrink, and then you'll see them rotten over with fuzz. We don't have any here now, which is fortunate. That's a good sign for this week, and it could be due to keeping those domes open more and starting to expose them to air daily. And now at this point, if another issue may be if seed coats are still attached. I don't think it's a big deal. Usually they fall off naturally. Sometimes they need a little help. If you notice it's on there, you could feel free to take it off. What I usually do is I'll grab a fresh toothpick that hasn't been used on anything and just try to lightly flick it off without damaging the seedling, of course. Now we are going to do a moisture check. Let's get this in a little bit closer. Right now, I'm seeing a little bit of top level. It's not too dry. I think it's just dry enough. Like I said, to combat that mold, we've started to keep the domes open a little bit more. Right now, based on the way they look, I think everything's good. What we are going to do is we're going to lift up a tray or two, and we're going to check what that moisture level looks further down. We want to make sure that the soil is still well saturated. And as you can see, everything looks pretty reasonably wet. If we needed to, we would do a bottom watering, which we would just add water at the bottom of the tray, leave it for 30 minutes, an hour, let it soak fully, and then go dump any residual water. That's going to keep the top from being too wet, but allowing our soil to get moist. And so when our roots are reaching down, they're able to find that water and continue to grow down. again, when it comes to mold, algae, and fungus, that's kind of been my battle over the last, I'd say, week. I did notice white fuzzy mold taking over a couple of my seedlings. I've noticed the fungus growing in the form of mushrooms. I'm trying to tackle these things right away. That was why the big thing was to switch to getting more airflow and opening those top vents, reducing the humidity overall, making sure that the soil is still remaining moist, like I said, but at the top level, we don't want it soaked anymore. We kind of want it to be able to dry off a little bit so that our roots are starting to reach down. These are desert cacti, um, so they know what to do. I mean, they're gonna push those roots down further into the soil to try to find a water source, and we don't want the top level to be bone dry again because we don't want these things to shrivel up and dry. They still need a little bit of that residual humidity, um, but we do want to we don't want to have that super moist surface like we used to. Now, when looking at fungus, we're going to pull over our other tray. And as you can see, we got a couple mushrooms. What I like to do, just grab a napkin, and then you want to be very careful. They're usually eating organic materials. They don't go after the roots or anything like that. So it's most likely that it's trying to eat wood particles or something organic within the soil. You want to be very careful to take it out to not disturb the others. So I'm actually going to hold this down with a toothpick. I noticed that they did move, but I mean, that's as little damage as we can do while removing those. There's another one here in the back that isn't touching anything. I'm just going to pull that one out. Fortunately, that one wasn't connected to any cacti. Other than that, I'm not seeing any green fuzzy mold this time. We did have some the other day. But again, that's why we've been increasing airflow. Things that really concern me is, like I said, that oversaturated soil. I've lost several seedlings now to the white fuzzy mold, and I tried using the hydrogen peroxide, but I would come in 2 days later, and there'd be another one gone, and you want to see every single one survive. So that was when I did a little bit more research, and I found out maybe it is time to start cracking the lids or increasing the airflow. So on the first couple days, I opened those vent lids on the very top just a little bit. Um, a couple days later, I've got them all the way open, and pretty soon here, probably within the next week or within this week, we'll see. Um, I'm probably going to do something they call the match tip trick, or whatever. You put a coin or something um, here in between the lid, and it'll keep this cracked open just enough more for airflow to come in from the bottom and still, heat and humidity to escape from the top. It's going to let the soil continue to stay dry enough to prevent any type of fuzzy mold or hopefully any more fungus from taking over our seedlings. Other than that, there's not really a lot I've been concerned with. Like I said, it's been those issues, and we want every single one to survive if possible. So I've taken the steps to resolve it, and we're going to continue to see how that works. What's next is we're going to continue to watch for the first real spine growth. Anytime now, we should start to see real spines starting to develop. Um, we're going to slowly increase the airflow as time goes on. Like I said, probably within the next week or so, I'm going to put something to prop the lids open at all times, and then within the next couple weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks after that, we're going to try to get them fully acclimated to several hours of air a day as well. Currently, like I said, I've been keeping these open for an hour a day or so, and monitoring them to make sure they're not drying out or anything like that. We're going to continue to monitor the humidity and watch for root rot. Anytime you see something that's starting to develop, you can try to address it. Usually, root rot, there's not a lot you can do, and that's because of the over moist soil, and that's why we're trying to get ahead of it now. We may be adjusting the lights if we need to. We might increase the intensity, but again, we're going to wait. We're going to see how they continue to develop as they are. I might bump it up to 80% within the next week or two, and just see how they go from there. And I am excited for week 4 because week 4 is when the growth really starts accelerating. I'm glad you all have joined me, and I hope you continue to watch as these continue to grow. It's amazing to think that every legendary cactus collection starts exactly like this. Tiny seedlings, barely bigger than a grain of rice, and in a few years these could become plants worth hundreds of dollars. But right now, every day matters. I'll keep documenting every step of the journey, the successes, the mistakes, and everything I learn along the way. So if you're growing alongside me, stick around because we're just getting started. Thanks again for watching the Cactus Cult YouTube video. Week 3 update. Please join the Cactus Cult, like and subscribe. Grow, collect, cultivate.